I like to use the term best update a lot for different reasons, but aside from my personal opinions, the community consensus is that this update is objectively the best. No debates, no ifs or buts. Before I reveal it, let me know what you think it is right now. You're probably going to guess it. Too slow, the best update by far, objectively speaking, is the anniversary update. We never have had such a large update, one of this variety, and not to mention, we won't ever get something of this scale again. Join me as I discuss why Anniversary is the best, most important, and all-round mind-blowing update of all time. You understand why this is pure crack to Sea of Thieves fans by the end of it. Or at least I hope so anyway. Anniversary, or the Anniversary update, launched on the 29th of April 2019 and marked the first major update of 2019, and the last of the Year 1 style main patches. Notice how it launched shortly after the 1 year anniversary. I'm sure Rare wanted to squeeze everything they could into this patch, and that would be the reason for its quote-unquote delay. Anniversary launched with 9 story missions, or Tall Tales as we know them, a new PvP focused game mode, a new faction in the Hunter's Call with accompanying fishing mechanics, the Harpoons, and expanded ship damage, along with some other cosmetics as well. So the update not only added more content, but it refined older and renewed existing mechanics, much in the vein of Shrouded Spoils but with the actual new stuff to boot. If you're a new player, contextualize this by thinking, what if a Pirate's Life launched, then doubled it, added Ships of Fortune, and mixed in some of Heart of Fire or Seabound Soul? That's the level of content we got. Let's start off with the first bit of content that was actually revealed, and that was Arena. Arena was announced on the 10th of November 2018, which was around 6 months before it launched. We were treated to a fancy CGI trailer featuring DeMarco Singh, one of the Pirate Lord's twin children, essentially teasing us about what is to come, with some gameplay bites in the background. This was a competitive game mode in which 5 ships competed to earn the most silver, a new in-game currency which worked as a point system. You could earn this by cashing in chests, in which all crews would have access to a shared map showing the same dig spots. There would be some changes to the scoring system later on, but this wouldn't come for many updates. Overall, Arena was a really fun game mode and was a great place to practice your PvP skills and attracted a subgroup of hardcore fans. I didn't really play it all that much at launch, as I was very much a solo sleeper back then, and playing an open crew absolutely sucks. Closer to its removal, I had a lot of fun playing with a sloop partner and some other galley friends. Arena marked a focus to PvP following the success of Twitch events such as Twitch Rivals. The naval combat in Sea of Thieves really shined, it always has. So logically it made sense to provide that action on demand. There were later problems with the game mode that arose, but as we're talking about Anniversary, we'll save that for a later date. On a related note, we got an expansion to the naval combat that we all love so much, which was expanded ship damage. Previously, the only damage a ship could take were holes in the hull. Following the release of Anniversary, the ship's wheels, capstans, and masts could all take damage. If you hit the wheel began to turn slower in 3 different stages. The capstan would lose its spokes, so fewer people could raise it, and would be lowered 2 if hit. And finally, each mast could be felled if hit with 3 cannonballs. You simply had to use your planks to repair the new ship parts, but with the mast you'd have to raise it using the ropes and then place a plank on it to repair it. If you tried to put the sails down again before this, it would simply fall down. Lastly, there could be 3 stages to the holes in your ship, with each allowing more water to enter and taking longer to patch. This expansion to ship combat was monumental and made the game that bit more immersive. Yes, these did make smaller ships at a disadvantage, but also made the boarding meta less important, where you didn't need to board to disable any ship. The expanded ship damage and Arena catered towards PvP in Sea of Thieves, one half of the game that I feel is a bit neglected nowadays and would love to see a bone thrown to it once in a while. But I'm sure you can see how this benefited a game that was still finding its feet in 2019. If we're already talking about ship changes, then the Harpoons provided our first sandbox tool linked with the ship combat directly. These Harpoons were placed on the end of each ship type and could be used for a variety of utilities. Unfortunately, you couldn't use it as a tightrope or zip wire, which was conceptualized in the early builds. On the other hand, this did mean we could use it for various ship-to-ship engagements, like harpooning a rock to do a tight U-turn, or harpooning a ship to reel them in for a boarding action. You could also use it to retrieve loot and players, making loading up your ship that much easier. It was arguably a small change, but overall has some awesome implications, so much so that it's being used all the time today for these actions too, so it's not like it's become stale with time. This is why I love additions to the sandbox, again, which we rarely get anymore. It's evergreen content that changes the game without a shelf life and creates memorable moments from time to time, just like I discussed with the Mega Keg in Shrouded Spoils. Moving swiftly on to the Hunter's Call. The Hunter's Call were a new trading company that were leveled up by handing in fish, meat, or mermaid gems to progress. Hand in hand with this was the fishing rod and a variety of fish that you could catch. The fish change depending on what bait you use, where you are, and even if the storm is nearby, which made the Sea of Thieves a more lively place with different fauna outside of snakes, pigs, and chickens. In addition to this, the health system was expanded as an added benefit. so you weren't just cooking for gold and reputation. Cooking meat drops by animals or sea monsters, or cooking fish allowed you to gain an increased amount of health back and overheal. Overheal essentially allows you to regenerate health slowly if you haven't taken damage for a short time. On top of these changes, we got 4 new types of fruit, causing the banana to be nerfed from 33% to 20% health, recovered on crunch. These other types of fruit were coconuts, pomegranates, mangoes, and pineapples, which recover 30, 40, 50, and 100% of your health respectively, with the last one even having 2 bites to heal you completely. Again, this change wasn't a new company to grind towards, but Rare went that one step further and changed the balance of the health system, which flipped the PvP and PvE meta on its side. The Hunter's Call is the biggest grind in the game and is largely tedious, but I can overlook that when you consider the amount that it changed as a result. And besides, there's always letters of culinary recommendation too if you don't want to fish. I use those a lot. I've saved the last major component of the update until last, and absolutely my favourite piece of content in Anniversary. I'm of course talking about Tall Tales. As we discussed before, up until this point, Sea of Thieves told its story through expanded media, cryptic flavour text, environmental changes, and live service campaigns like Hungering Deep and Curse Sales. Tall Tales would mark the first time we have a full voice-acted, permanent set of campaign missions, with commendations, cosmetics, and a whole lot of lore goodness. The first set, aptly named The Shores of Gold, was a 9 Tall Tale arc in which players had to track down the illustrious Shroudbreaker, an ancient artifact that can part the shroud and allow pirates to travel to islands hiding in the shroud. We had to follow in the footsteps of the Pirate Lord, Captain Briggsy, 2 lost lovers, the crew of the Morning Star, and Grey Marrow to rebuild the Shroudbreaker. This was in order to reach an island fabled to many, the Shores of Gold, or Tribute Peak as its actual name. Tall Tales to this day get a bad rap for not being replayable, and that's fair. But objectively, these are the best means of telling a story in Sea of Thieves and truly immerse you into a pirate fantasy world like nothing else. The Tall Tales essentially give you a book which keeps a record of all your clues, and after that initial introduction, it's mainly up to you to work out where you go. They initially were challenging, but the reward for figuring out the puzzles was rich. From diving into ancient vaults to solving skeleton ciphers to using planks against the backdrop of landmarks, it truly was a puzzle master's dream. I will say the biggest issue with these first 9 Tall Tales is the bloated sailing times, where some of them will have a long sail between destinations. On the other hand, you could argue each does feel like you're on a journey. Without spoiling too much yet, the 1st, 2nd, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th are all a treat, with the middle Tall Tales being quite tedious. Keep in mind also that this story comes off the back of Athena's Fortune, a tie-in novel released in October 2018, which introduces the many characters of the Sea of Thieves. Seeing these characters appear in the novel in the game was a highlight for me. It always hits a nostalgic note thinking about it, even as I talk about it now. Overall, the best part of this whole journey is 2 things in particular. If you spent maybe 20 to 30 hours getting the Shroudbreaker together, and speak to Grace Morrow at Morrow's Peak, where you're finally able to use it. You head northeast through the Shroud, revealing a spectacle to behold, bursting out into a colossal never before seen island, one that's a treat to explore. The moment alone is true magic, it's almost indescribable. After solving the various puzzles, venturing into the belly of gold, through a trap gauntlet, you get to face off against the legendary Gold Hoarder, a villain that is built up in the marketing and books throughout the last 3 years at this point. But on top of that, when you finish the fight, you have an incredible, awe-inspiring speech from the Pirate Lord set to the backdrop of a gorgeous light show, which is coupled with the best version of Becalmed you've ever heard. Definitely the best single moment in Sea of Thieves and maybe top 5 for me gaming wise. The other element of Shores of Gold which we have and will not experience ever again is the release of a chunky story, all on one day that takes actual puzzle solving to complete. While I love the Seabound Soul, the Heart of Fire and A Pirate's Life, both technically missed the mark here. The former released 5 months from one another, only featured 1 episode at a time, and unfortunately stopped very abruptly after Heart of Fire released in March 2020. With The Pirate's Life, it was a rather short stint with no major lore reveals for the Sea of Thieves, despite it being an enjoyable theme park ride nonetheless. It could have done with maybe 5 more Tall Tales to improve the feeling of the journey and the pacing. That is why the Shores of Gold is objectively the GOAT story arc. Even as I love Flameheart's story, Shores of Gold is just better for the pacing. It was just a whimsical time for me, and one day I hope to recapture that feeling. With all that being said, I hope I've adequately explained why Anniversary is the greatest update of all time. Rare came out shortly after its release and let us know we won't be getting an update of this size ever again. Which is always a little sad, but if it avoids burnout and super crunch, then I can live with that. If you like this video and want more, please make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Did you like the Anniversary update? Please let me know how you feel down in the comments, I read absolutely all of them. Thanks again for watching and I'll see you in the next video.